The evil eye. Have you ever gotten the evil eye?
Oh, yeah. I was right with my mom all the time.
Oh, really?
Oh, God. I think it came from her. I think it spread across the world. She
started it?
I think so.
Alrighty then.
Yeah.
If ever your life could be a true crime podcast episode, then this podcast is for you. We're about to embark on a roller coaster of emotions, insights, survival, and stories about escape. So buckle up and let the journey begin.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Escape Pod. We are recording on a random day, a Monday. We don't usually do this.
Mondays,
and it
feels
coming.
weird. The vibe is weird.
The vibe is so weird, which means it could be an excellent episode. I'm Julie. That's Charity.
Could be
right?
an excellent.
The weirder
it could be.
The mood.
It could be, and this could be the day that a guest alien sits down, and we get to be the first one to podcast with a member of the space variety. Who knows? I mean, it could go any way today.
The IT guy and I pondered if a ghost had been in here this morning when he couldn't figure out why something that had worked when he walked out the door wasn't working.
Yeah.
We got it back, but I'm not sure that Casper didn't hang out in the escape pod for a few minutes just to mess with our minds.
It's their toy room, probably.
I mean,
yeah,
whatever.
I mean, kids would
whatever
love it in
floats
here.
your boat. Oh, the buttons.
Buttons.
My
Big
child
buttons.
and the buttons would
all the
be
colors, levers,
best of
buttons.
friends.
Yeah.
They are pretty colors.
Game over.
Good
They are
point.
pretty colors.
What are you escaping from this fine day?
Funerals.
Oh, I feel that in my soul.
And funding problems.
Mm-hmm.
And just probably all the F letter words.
Just about to say all the F words.
All the F words.
I mean, if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some days are just a lot heavier than others. And
Today's one of those days.
Today's one of those days. Yeah.
I'm just escaping a long to-do list. So this comes at kind of a good time because,
well, our Friday retreat put us back. Me, at least my schedule, probably yours too. So yeah,
a little bit.
I'm like, okay. I thought I could handle all this stuff, and then just one day not at it, and it's like you need that break, but then it's like buckle up, you got to catch up now.
Just out of curiosity, and because I was home to do it, on Saturday morning, I checked my email, and I had several things that needed not immediate responses, but that I had to.
Pressing.
Yeah. That come this morning had to be kind of dealt with right away.
Yep.
So I do not open my email very much on the weekend, not my work email. I deal with all my fun personal stuff
the other
on the
things
weekends.
you can't say no to.
Right. But I was kind of glad I did it because then I did it like with a clearer head than I would have if I would have walked in today with those. Ooh, I don't know.
Panic.
A little bit.
Yeah.
What can you do?
I don't know. I like after yesterday, and it was yesterday was my friend's funeral. So beautiful ceremony,
day.
Very gorgeous day, gorgeous setting, very atypical. I mean, I've never said, oh, I really enjoyed that funeral. This one was so perfect that it's now my favorite. Like, it just was so probably non-traditional. The setting, the way it was done, it just honored him in such a really beautiful way that, But at the same time, I mean, resident empath here.
Yeah.
Being around 150, 200 people, and
it's hard.
It is hard. So by about 3 o'clock yesterday, I'm like, my eyes are all swollen. I'm just like, I just want to take a nap. I want a foot nap, just a foot rub and a nap. And he looks at me. He's like, you better not sleep. I'm like, I know.
Because
But I mean, I'm literally moving away from like not sitting against the back of the chair because I'm like, I got to move. And so went to bed early, and I think I was probably asleep by 7.
Wow.
I just couldn't. And then I still woke up feeling not rested. And all of my dreams were like task oriented, but it's tasks that you cannot get a handle on.
Yeah.
And then I'd wake up going, okay, I know that's not real. I know that pile of whatever is not really there. And then I'd try to go back to sleep, and and I'm sure it's just decompressing after all of that. But, you know, seeing my friend go through that way earlier than anyone ever plans is just really, really hard. And so, F words.
Yeah. Grief brings with it a level of exhaustion that I had no idea until last year.
Yep.
How exhausting, how tired.
Well, it's
it
also
makes you.
different when it's like someone who has, I mean, like I think of Bev, you know, we just hit her year anniversary of her passing, and I knew that was coming. Like I started feeling it before I was aware that, oh, this is why I'm thinking about her constantly. But someone who lived a really powerful, profound, amazing life, and then versus someone who's 57 and full of life and clearly not done and dedicated to all these different things and missions, it's just like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know, so that whole notion of, I'm sorry because I know you're religious, but that whole bullshit of God has a plan, I'm like, oh, fuck your plans, because, you know, like just that whole, okay, babies get sick and it's like God's will. Like it's not helpful for people who are grieving in a lot of cases. They just are like, I mean, for some people it brings them solace. For others, it's just like, no, it's just sometimes life is not fair. It's just not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair. And now I have to go through life without my partner. And, you know, being marriage number 2 for both of them, it was like they find the right people. And then it was so short-lived. It's just stupid. So it's hard. And I grieve for her and with her and the whole family. It just really, really sucks. And when you think about all the horrible people on the planet, stuff doesn't happen to them. I mean, they live forever, I swear to God. And then all the good people seem to just go way too early.
I do sometimes think some people are larger than life.
Yeah.
And I had somebody once who said, I think we have a certain number of heartbeats. And, you know, some people, like, they go through those heartbeats faster than others. And it's a theory and an interesting concept. But, yeah, I don't know that saying certain things helps much in the moments when...
And I know people don't know what to say. It's
Correct.
just hard. But,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like we had this whole philosophical rabbit hole of all this stuff, just grieving and processing. And it's like, you know, people do their best. They don't know what to do. And I get that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay just to say, you know what, this sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. And
You can't, there's nothing I can say to make you feel better. And I know that and I acknowledge that. And I'm not even going to try because it's just cliche and insincere because we don't, it's not, it can't work. And you know it can't work. So just didn't even try. Just like, here, have some more wine.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, for sure. Okay, tell us about our topic today, please.
Our topic today, I researched this a while back because I was like, all the things we cover, how much of it has actually happened in our home state of South Dakota? And while this didn't really happen in our state, the main heroine is from our state. She lived here and just crossed the border into Iowa when this thing happened.
Okay.
But these are the Gitchie Manitou murders. And having grown up around here, I mean, you just think, and I get it, internet didn't exist when I was a kid. You know, so the way news could travel is much different than it is today.
For sure.
But still, this is such a massive story. It really surprised me that I'd never heard of it.
How far are we going back?
We're going back to, well, she was born in 1960. The event itself happened the summer of 73. So just, I was a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot going on in a variety of spaces in South Dakota in the early 70s.
That is very true.
And so I kind of wondered, this
is
might be
very
a
true.
thing that gets lost.
But the heroine involved was actually mixed race. Mm-hmm. So to me, it seems like it might have gotten pushed up a little bit more, but it didn't.
Okay.
And this story will also give you a really good indication of race relations
Yeah.
and that kind of a thing back then.
Uh-huh.
And not to say it's markedly better now. I mean, I think it is better now, but
I would agree.
is it as good as it could be or should
No.
be? No, I don't believe
No,
so.
it is not.
But how she was treated after being victimized in such a horrific way, arguably, in my opinion, because she was of mixed race.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We're going to touch on that, I'm guessing.
Oh, we're gonna touch on it. It's just really, it's interesting. It's heartbreaking. But unlike many stories, we get her whole trajectory before
Okay.
and after. She survives what I'm going to describe to you.
An escape artist.
She's an escape artist, and then she learned how to turn her tragedy and her trauma into healing. Like in very much. Well, I'll get into it. I don't want to give any spoilers.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
are you ready? Let me wipe my nose.
super-
one more
I
time.
know. I too. It's like a contagious.
She's sympathy snotting over there.
That could be a thing.
It could be a thing. All right. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're going to wind all the way back to 1960 when the heroine of our story, Sandra Chesky is her name. She was born. She had a very hard life early on. Born in the back of a car
Ooh.
near Eagle Butte. I was
My
probably
nightmare.
Well, I was probably conceived in the back of a car,
Oh,
I would imagine.
Too much information.
Well, I'm just saying, knowing that situation probably is not far off. Sandra was mixed race. She was half white, half Native American. And her parents divorced when she was a baby. And her dad, like that typical trope, leaves the mom and the kids and just, pieces out. So she's got 3 older brothers. And of course, single mom, 4 kids, struggled financially. So they move in with her grandparents. But everybody loved this young lady. I mean, she was very kind and gentle, the kind of person who wanted to save all the animals and, just had that kind, compassionate heart. So her mother remarried when she was 4, causing them to move away from the grandparents' farm.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the husband, after the fact, wasn't real keen on mom having kids. Like you'd think you'd assess that before you get married, but
One would hope.
I guess those were some really strong pheromones going on. We'll think about it later. Maybe he was a procrastinator. We'll deal with it later. But he wasn't keen on the mom having 4 kids to care for. So somehow he convinced mom to place them in foster care. And then that foster care also entailed an Indian boarding school. Okay. Now, in Sandra's foster home, conditions, as you can imagine, probably were not great. They were not great. She was used as child labor, essentially, and conditions during the week at the boarding school were unhealthy and unsanitary. And to make things even worse, she was bullied at the boarding school because she was too white. So she just didn't fit quite in anywhere.
It happens, a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she begs her mom to move back home. Mom finally concedes, and then the family was reunited and moved to T, South Dakota, just south of Sioux Falls.
Okay.
Okay. So now it's the summer of 1973. She's in 7th grade. She's 13 years old. She meets 17-year-old Roger Essam while at a drive-in movie theater.
Okay.
Falls for him instantly. She thought he was the most handsome guy she'd ever seen. And not only that, he's cool. He's a cool dude. He was easy to get along with, very gentle soul, loved nature and art. And he's just super thoughtful like she was, unlike most guys that age. We're really only thinking about one thing. He just wasn't that way. They hit it off. They began dating. But Sandra hadn't really disclosed her true age to Roger and his friends. She's 13 and guilty. Can relate. When you look older and you're more mature, you just don't have to. They're going to assume what they're going to assume, and there's no need to correct them sometimes. So they thought she was around their age because she was so poised and mature, and she'd been through a lot, and that leads to that kind of persona.
Lesson for young men out there.
Yeah.
You should actually ask
the
for
question.
identification and
Statutory
clarification
rape
on
is
age.
a real thing.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
She didn't tell me. Did you ask? Okay. I mean,
Right?
I don't think she didn't tell me isn't a plea.
No.
Don't think so. All right. So he was a gentleman, though. He treated her very respectfully and really seemed to value her. So things were going well in this early budding relationship. So one evening, Roger and his friends wanted to go to the Gitchie Manitou Reserve. It means great spirit. And they wanted to go for a night of just, fun and friends and music and smoking dope and the whole deal, right? Okay. So Roger and his friend, 18-year-old Stuart's little brother, who was 14-year-old Dana, and then Dana's friend, 15-year-old Michael. Okay, so they pick up Sandra that night to go to the reserve. And this was a popular hangout for kids. It was in the middle of nowhere. You had just a place where they could light a fire, smoke a joint, just be teenagers. So they got there around 9:30 that night, immediately noticing that there had already been a fire burning pretty recently. So they moved deeper into the reserve, not wanting to impose on somebody else's vibe or their good time. So to set the scene, they got their fire going. It's kind of a dark and foggy. So
you are giving me heebie-jeebies already.
Just wait.
Oh.
So early November, Midwest. You can picture it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So settled in, Roger puts his arm around Sandra. Stuart's playing his guitar. They light a joint, and it's just this chill evening. They're all vibing, whatever. But not long after, only about 20 minutes or so, they started hearing sounds coming from the woods around them.
And this is why I don't watch horror movies, by the way. I can't. Freaks me out.
I wish I had some.
You are
freaking
freaking me out. Stop.
I'm doing my own sound beds here.
It's not okay.
Okay. So they tried to chalk it up to animals. Roger pulled Sandra in tighter in a protective manner, but then they see somebody. They catch a glimpse of two people. Roger is the first one to stand up and walk kind of a ways from the rest of them to go check it out. And he's like, "Hey, who are you? What do you want?" He calls out to them, and he's met with a response of loud bangs.
Oh, no.
Just boom. Roger falls to the ground, and he was dead instantly.
Oh.
Michael grabs Sandra and runs into the woods to hide. And then they can hear more gunshots. Stuart's hit. He falls down. Michael tells Sandra, don't run, so she stays put, which is probably what ended up saving her life. And then the men behind the voices going back and forth with them identified them as police officers and told the kids that they were in trouble for having marijuana. Michael and Sandra come out of hiding. Michael's holding his hands up and says, "Hey, dude, if you're the cops, why are you shooting at us?"
Mm-hmm.
And then he was then shot in the shoulder. So these so-called cops then forced them to walk through the trees. They gathered up Stuart, dragged him to their truck. So Roger's dead. The rest of them Sandra's the only one maybe not injured.
Okay.
And they're dragging hurt Stuart to the truck. When they got to the pickup, the cops used wire to bind their wrists.
Yeah, because cops don't have handcuffs all of a sudden.
Cops are just really crafty, Julie.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. These poor kids. Okay.
I know. Sandra was then placed in the van, and one of the cops told her he was going to try to get her off the hook for the marijuana, so she goes along calmly because she doesn't want to get in any trouble. She's 13.
Of course.
She's terrified. Her boyfriend just got shot.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't know what's going on. And first, you know what? I'm going to do this in backwards order. You've got to see these idiots because you need to look at their pictures before we go the rest of the story.
Very 70s-ish.
Something ain't right.
Mm-hmm.
Look at these two especially.
Little iffy. Just first impression.
What's that movie? Deliverance?
It is.
I all of a sudden have banjo music going through my head. That movie scared the crap. I watched it by myself. Well, I'd heard about it. And then I was like 35 or so.
And you're like, what is it? Why
the hype? And does it hold up? Scared out of me. It was terrible.
I won't watch it.
It was don't. Don't, because then there's just certain things you can't unsee.
Right?
Yeah.
I know.
Nope. All right. So those are the idiots. And there's no way these guys are going to come off as police officers. Right?
No,
you just looked at
likely.
them. Not. Okay, they looked like total losers. But I suppose it was dark and foggy.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and they have weapons, so
they
that
had
in
weapons.
And of itself makes it a scary situation.
I'll get you more into Sandra's mental space in a little bit. But so anyway, she's in the van. She goes along calmly. She tells them to untie her hands. They did, which surprised her.
Okay.
And then she asked if an ambulance was coming for Roger, and they told her he'd only been shot with a tranquilizer gun and that he'd be fine. and one of the cops drove her away. She looks out the rear window and sees the 2 other men leading her friends into the woods.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the boys were forced to walk at gunpoint. They were executed on the side of the road. And as if that weren't enough, one of the shooters pumped more bullets into their bodies, just feeling very manly or whatever. I don't know. The man with Sandra turned out to be the 29-year-old Alan Fryer. I think he's the middle one.
Okay.
He told Sandra, no, he's the older one, excuse me. He told Sandra he was the boss of the other 2 men as they drove around for a while. So it was the younger brothers that shot these are all 3 brothers, by the way. I don't know if I said that already.
Okay.
So she was having doubts that they were cops, but she was scared that if it was the cops, that she would get sent back to the boarding school or a detention facility. And she really, really, really didn't want to go back to either of those situations. So she's just like waiting for that telltale sign of, what is this? And can I, you know what I mean? She doesn't want to be back in those situations. Mm-hmm. So then later, they're driving around for a while. She's really surprised when they rendezvoused back with these other men, and her friends weren't anywhere to be seen. Sandra recalls Alan getting out of the truck, and then another man we later learn is James, the youngest.
Okay.
Gets in, the one that looked like a frog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And her words looked like a curled snake that could strike any moment. And strike he did. He raped her in the truck, and he left. She was left with Alan again, and she told him that she'd been a virgin after the assault. And then that's when she told him she was only 13.
Ooh.
And he didn't believe her at first. But she kept thinking that if he was the cops and she had to go through this to not get sent back to a detention facility or a boarding school, she was going to write it out and hopefully get to the other side. Okay. So, I mean, the will and the resolve of this young girl having just been violently raped, and this guy was not kind about it. I mean, no rape is kind, but
right.
Yeah.
You can spare me the gory details.
I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm just not.
Also, she's just in survival mode.
She's totally in survival mode. Yeah, there's nothing she did wrong during this. She was absolutely in survival mode. When asked by the other men what Alan was going to do with Sandra now that he'd done what he set out to do, he just said, "Yep, I'll handle it," promising his brothers that he'd kill her. But he seemed to kind of have a soft spot for her, and he couldn't do it. He never even tried. I think he felt guilty for what he'd allowed to happen to her, and now he knows she's 13, and this comes back into play on why. So Alan eventually pulls up to her house around 5 a.m., tells her not to tell anyone else, because if she did, when he gets out of jail in 5 years, because cops, by the way, will only spend 5 years in jail. This is the story he gave her. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
He'd come back for her and kill her.
Huh.
So she gets into her house. She immediately tells her brother what happened, and he said, "Nope, not real cops. Little sister, not a chance." So it was the next morning, a couple was out test driving a new car, and they came across the bodies of the 4 boys in the park. Sandra didn't know this yet, though. Okay, so this is happening concurrently with this next part.
Okay.
They find the spent shell casings. Those were recovered, and they were determined to be from 12, 16, and 20-gauge shotguns. Investigators reasoned that there could have been not just 1, but 3 killers. Okay. This is how they started putting the pieces together. So meanwhile, Sandra is calling Roger's house the next day, still thinking he'd been tranquilized, right? And hoping that she'd been told the truth about that piece of it at least. But no one in his family had seen him. So she enlists the help of a friend to go look for him and his friends. And then when she called Roger's house again, Roger's brother asked if he could come pick her up. Like, let's go do this together. But he immediately takes her to the police station because he thinks, he knows they've already found his brother's body. And he thinks that Sandra had something to do with it.
Oh, in a negative way.
In a negative
Not that
way.
she was a victim too.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And she was immediately arrested.
Oh, no.
Easy.
Right?
Yep. The one that got away, half Native American, back in this time.
Sure.
Yeah. We're gonna level accusations and try to actually investigate later, right? So they interrogated her, and she proceeded to write a 10-page dossier on what happened that night. But they didn't believe her because there was absolutely no motive for 3 random men to brutally murder a bunch of teenagers in the park. And why was she the only survivor? They couldn't get it. They just didn't. It just didn't shake out for them. And then why would a murderer just drop her off at her house?
Okay.
And why would only one of them rape her?
Well,
Okay. They also didn't like how she responded when they told her that the boys had been victims of homicide. And I'll get to that in a moment. And I guess she didn't react how they thought she should, but we later learned that she did not know what the word homicide meant.
Okay.
So she didn't realize they'd been killed. They're throwing
Okay.
around this word she just has no context for.
Okay. I thought maybe shock, but that also makes sense.
She just didn't know. They also didn't know why she was so mature. They didn't have any insight into the things that she'd endured already at her young 13 years. So they thought she may have been in on the murders. When Sandra's mom came to get her, the police told her that Sandra had been helpful in trying to catch the murderers. And that was when Sandra realized what homicide meant.
Oh.
And then it hit her. All of her friends were dead. She completely lost all composure then.
Okay.
Like now she gets it. And then the emotions that she wasn't displaying because she didn't understand.
Yeah.
Now she understands. She ended up in a detention facility anyway, but they said it was only for her protection because now it seemed that some of the law enforcement officers believed her and that they were afraid that these men would come back for her once they knew she had told them everything.
Okay.
So she's there for her safety. The public freaks out. They take the side of the conspiracy that Sandra must have known more, that she was saying she had to be involved. And so they just started treating her like the town pariah. Parents refused to let their kids be with her, be friends with her. Police set up a safe house for her and her family. And Sandra wanted to go see her friends' bodies at the funeral parlor to say goodbye, but they were afraid the men would find her. Okay. So they wouldn't let her. But she was allowed to go to Roger's funeral under police protection and kind of off in a little side room away from everyone else. Mm-hmm. But a family member figured out that she was there and just accosted her, blaming her for Roger's death and making a big scene, forcing her to leave the church. So she didn't get to say goodbye to Roger either. Mm. And that's just really hard when you're that young. Like, you need that closure. So it's just really tragic. And now the community is turning against her. She's a 13-year-old victim.
Right.
And they are treating her like garbage. She wasn't allowed to go back to school. She wasn't allowed to have friends. She was forced to live in this safe house. And despite all this, she just tried to remain strong and get justice for her friends. Sheriff Craig Vinson, however, he believed her.
Okay.
So he would pick her up every morning to drive around the rural areas to try to find the farmhouse next to which she'd been raped. She had written that in her dossier.
Okay.
And he might have been her only friend at this point in her life.
Okay.
And then one day, out in the middle of nowhere.
I was going to say, this is classic, like South Dakota, Iowa, you know, the
Middle of
flyover
nowhere.
states. You, in many cases, are truly, you do feel like you're in the middle of nowhere.
This would have been November 29th now of 73.
Okay.
A white pickup truck drives out of a driveway of a farm, and Sandra starts screaming, "That's him! That's him!"
Oh, my.
And so the sheriff is like, "Oh, my gosh, let's deputies and Sandra out of the car." And then he whips around, and he pulls the white pickup over. And the guy looks eerily similar to sketches Sandra had helped them with.
Okay.
The truck was the same. The farm he came out of had the same red fuel tank she described to the police.
Huh.
Turns out it was 29-year-old Alan Fryer, the man who'd driven her around, and he was leaving the farm where he was a hired hand. Okay. And that's where the rape had occurred. Oh. So he and his brothers, 24-year-old David and 21-year-old James, were arrested not long after Sandra identified them in a lineup. The brothers all tried blaming each other for the murders. James tried saying that Sandra was having fun with them and agreed to have sex with all of them. This 13-year-old virgin. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds about right. Now we're at December of 73. The brothers are all charged with 4 counts of murder. Alan and David were sent to jail in Iowa, but James stayed in Sioux Falls because of his previous jail sentence. Each of them was tried separately. James wasn't charged with rape because of his previous record. The murder was going to be enough to sentence him to life in prison.
Okay,
and they didn't
so it's just easier.
It's easier for her.
Yeah.
They didn't want to put her through that. Yeah. So, and she was testifying on the murder trial, so she was already heavily involved.
Mm-hmm. The fact, though, that even in the early 70s, somebody recognized that often is seen as like victimization to put somebody through that.
I think it's because the sheriff believed her, you know, and really took her. Like, he seemed pretty protective of her.
Okay.
But so February of 1974, David pleads guilty to 3 counts of murder and 1 count of manslaughter. He later asked for parole in 2016, And when Sandra and Michael's sister gave testimony, his request was denied. Poor baby. May of 1974, Alan was found guilty on all 4 counts of murder, no possibility of parole. And then in June of 1974, Alan and James escaped from jail,
Oh.
stole a truck.
Oh, my.
The sheriff was afraid they were going after Sandra, so they called Sioux Falls and had her brought into police custody. Oh, my God, like not even a year later. Can you imagine? You're trying to
No.
get on with your life. You're still the town pariah, and you get that call. But fortunately for her, they must have been intending to flee and not look for her because they were found in Wyoming after hitting a pedestrian.
Oh, geez.
I'm not laughing because the pedestrian hit. I'm laughing because these guys
are terrible
just
criminals.
idiots.
They're bad
They
at doing
need
bad
to be
things.
locked up. So they're brought back to Iowa. Today, all 3 brothers are still incarcerated.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I was going to use, I need to just stop. You know, my tendency lately to have these really awful sayings that should not be.
Sometimes they're so appropriate, though.
But they're not.
I mean, a little bit.
I just need to stop. I need like a sock to stuff in my mouth or something. Oh, Lord. But the Gitchie Girl became Sandra's nickname, and people kept ostracizing her. She dealt with PTSD pretty heavily.
Of course.
Survivor's guilt, and then just being subjected to that small town, small-mindedness and victim shaming crap.
I was going to say, even if they were very supportive of her, she could have PTSD.
Oh, absolutely. But this certainly
But they
was
made
salt
it so
in the
much
wound.
worse. Yeah.
I mean, there was just no reason for these murders. None. Just psychopathy. Like there was...
Was there any indication of what the motivation was, or was it just we had the opportunity to kill somebody?
I think it's this. So these brothers, James had been in a Sioux Falls jail, but he was out on work release. This is kind of how it happened, if I recall. His brothers called the jail impersonating James's employer, saying that he was needed to work another shift.
Okay.
It worked.
Okay.
The brothers were determined to show James a good time before he had to go back to jail.
Okay.
They had their shotguns. They had a goal of poaching deer.
Okay.
They'd been out in the reserve trying to murder animals when they came up on the Friends, and they saw that the Friends had weed.
Oh.
And they wanted to steal it. That's what made them start to like interact with the kids. And when Alan later learned that Sandra was only 13, I think that's when things changed for her future. He saw her as a child because he had a stepdaughter around that same age.
Okay.
And that's how she ended up becoming humanized to him.
Maybe.
So in 2016, Sandra actually released a book about these events
Okay.
so that her grandchildren would know that she and her friends were good kids that just had something terrible and tragic happen to them, that they weren't juvenile delinquents up to no good like members of the community kind of made them out to be. She talks about how the community treated her and how she walked around with her head down. And it wasn't until she released the book and began talking publicly about the events of that night that she began to heal many, many years later. And then the other, people in the public wrapped their arms around her, seeing her for that child victim that she was when all of this happened. And that gave her the courage to finally move beyond it. She says she never should have been placed in a position to feel shame, but that's what her community did to her. And now she says she's not a victim, she's a survivor. And then later, digging into the histories of these 3 men, huge, huge family dysfunction was the norm, as was violence. Their father referred to the 3 brothers as his chore boys, and they seemed to have like a pack mentality when they were together.
Okay.
Yeah. So if Alan hadn't taken Sandra and left, that pack mentality, she probably wouldn't be here.
Right.
Yeah. Co-author of the book, he said, they were criminals when they were in each other's presence. For the Fryer brothers, life was all about what was going to be the next crime, what they could steal next, and what could they go out and shoot next.
Oh, my gosh.
So big winners, but they're all locked up and probably never going to get out. So I just thought, my God, how many times I had snuck out and been in the Black Hills, in the middle of nowhere, places I still can't find to this day, but sure knew how to get to when I was a young teenager. And, you know, the drugs and the alcohol and all the stuff. And just.
And you weren't alone. I mean, I did not party at all in high school, but certainly had lots of people in my life who did. And, you know, most of the time, nothing ever happened. It was, you know, it was pretty, now looking back, I mean, technically criminal, yes, but all in all, fairly innocent in nature. It is a teenage thing to do. It's not unusual. And so to have kids go out just, you know, they weren't hurting anything really but themselves and doing some drugs. They don't help you. They might not hurt you as much as other things do. But
well, back then, probably not as much because it wasn't as hybridized and genetically altered as it is today.
Yeah, they just, when you think about the grand scheme of things, was it the worst thing they could have been doing? Not really. Yeah. And so to have that be the consequence of being in that place at that time is very tragic.
No, and it's not like I mean, there's some kids, and I was one of these, and my husband still calls me a shit magnet. Like, just things happen.
Yeah.
And it did when I was a kid, too. Just like, oh, my God, this just should have been level and not a big deal. It ends up being a big deal. Mm-hmm. And somehow I just always seem to not cause it, but be around when that kind of a thing would happen. And I guess I don't know. It's just awful.
Yeah. I was talking with a couple parents recently about the company you keep, you know, and it made me think more of the brothers when they said, like, when they were together, they kind of had this different. There are definitely people out there who, if you just know them one-on-one,
each other,
they're not terrible, but there are when they are with certain people. And I had somebody recently who said, yeah, my mom said to me, you know, that one friend, it was always when you were with him. That's when you got in trouble.
Well,
Did you have that?
My one friend, her name was Julie. It wasn't this Julie. But good God in heaven, I think my husband is very happy that we don't see each other anymore because, I mean, Julie was with me the night I got arrested.
Yeah.
The very first night we met, I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast, but that involved plans to run somebody over.
Well, that was the bad waitressing night.
That was the bad waitressing night.
Yes, we have talked about that.
Did we talk about the getting kicked out of the dance club?
I'm not sure.
And I'm egging them on. Call the police, because, like, get them here. You think you're right? I'm gonna out-blast you. I will out-argue you any day.
Yeah.
And she's like, shut up. She didn't know me at all, but, like, just the number of fights.
Yeah.
And it was never me. Like, these were, like, I didn't grow up in the ag community. Uh-huh. And she came from a rancher family. And there were just random people she'd run into, and the drinks would be flowing, and then the next thing you know, it's a girl fight. One time she got me in a chokehold. Did I tell you about that?
No.
Yeah.
Like funny, ha-ha, or mad at you?
No, she was going to kick my ass because I took her car keys. She shouldn't have been driving.
Oh.
I took her car keys, and she wanted her car keys back and was not going to give them to her back. So she ended up getting me in a chokehold I could not get out of. I don't remember how it ended up ending, but I'm just like, oh, she went off the deep end. But we got into so much
trouble.
Just like, and the number of car accidents, she's always driving, always her driving. But so many car accidents, and I think it's because she is such a talker, and she'd be looking at me instead of the road. I'm like, Julie, you can multitask. Your lips can move when you're looking through the windshield. I promise you, it works like that. But just crazy. Being in the bars underage here. One night, the cops come and do a walkthrough of the club we were at, and we were hiding in the bathroom, and escaped peril every time.
Yeah.
But as it's bar closing now and we're leaving, there's this guy walking down the steps behind us. This was so I don't know, before your time probably, but there used to be a club called Fat Boys.
I did know of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and then it was the Firehouse Theater, or they had a small theater up there, but it's that long steep staircase in the old historic building, right? So we're coming down the staircase, And I don't know if she was 21 yet because she was a couple years older than me. She was closer to my husband's age, but I know I wasn't. And so we're coming down the steps, and there's this really drunk guy behind us trying to, get in with us. And it's like, no, it's not going to work. So she starts jawing at him, and he's trying to be nice, and he just wasn't that bright little, this kind of like dork. And so he got really mad at her. And so in his drunken brilliance thinks that he's going to kick her.
Oh.
And he kicks, and his shoe comes right off. So then she just starts, and he's stumbling down these stairs. It was really pathetic, actually. So then she just starts teasing him. It's like smelling blood in the water, kick him while he's down. And she knew his name was Mike. So she's like, oh, big Mikey, you big stud. Look at you with your shoes off, and just going after him.
Oh, my.
And he's trying to go on the fight. Now we're on the sidewalk out in front of the firehouse, and this guy's coming after us. And of course, I'm not going to let my friend get beat up. And so my husband, we're dating at the time, and he knows I'm underage. And he's like, get in the car. Just get in the car. We're like, no, we're determined to get arrested tonight.
Double trouble.
Always, 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 always.
Double trouble.
It just goes on and on and on.
Those can be great life lessons, though, to share with, for example, your own children. So this is where our conversation stemmed from, was like the person I was talking to said, my mom always said, remember that kid? That's when you got in trouble. And it's okay to use those as examples of like, you got to be mindful of the company you keep. Yes, they can be fun sometimes. And if it's fairly innocent trouble, so goes life.
Yeah,
like you're a kid-ish,
I guess.
But there are people, though, who lead you much farther down the troubled path.
Oh, I had plenty of those too.
Right?
Yeah.
And you gotta be
Did I ever tell you about the time you staked him out?
That you what?
Staked him out.
I don't think so.
So it's kind of crazy.
You? I'm aware.
Yeah. As a younger woman, young adult. No, I was paranoid because now I had this actually nice boyfriend.
Yes.
And I'm like, it's too good to be true. I'm going to figure out a way to sabotage this business. Like,
people do that.
Bring it on. And so, he's studying chemical engineering, and there's like one girl in the whole class, Chemi, and they're in some kind of study group. And I'm like, he's cheating on me. I know he's cheating on me. He's cheating on me. And I got really paranoid about it. So Julie and I went and staked out campus one night. We're in her truck waiting. And, pretty soon he's done. We knew where he was supposed to be at, and he comes walking down to head back to the frat house. And she had this little tiny pickup, like a Chevy S10.
Okay.
Like you can cram 4 people in there. We've done it.
Right. But it's not meant for 4 people.
And it's not. You can only hide one person and maybe a half of another person. So she backed into the parking spot, and the headlights were facing him as he's walking. And we're hiding, and she hits remember when the bright thing used to be on the floor? So she's like, God damn it, stop hitting the lights, stop hitting the lights. She's like, I'm trying. And then he sees us, and we're like, I'm supposed to be at her sister's house. So we're like, oh, he knows it's us. I know he knows it's us. So we hauled ass across town to get to her sister's house. Just like we figured we could get there about the same time it was going to take him to walk to the frat house. So we get there, and sure enough, he's calling Julie's sister to see if I'm there. And I'm out of breath, and I'm just like, hey, how's it going? What are you doing?
That was his
Nothing?
first time being a detective.
Oh,
that was the first
God.
police work he ever did.
And then to go see him after that, I'm just like, he's like, honest to God, I am not cheating on you. I'm studying with her. And I mean, obviously he wasn't, but I was just determined but nothing I did made him.
I mean, miracles happen every day.
Thank God.
What are you escaping to this week?
Clearly memories. Jesus.
Right?
Okay. A dive bar tour is a thing.
Okay.
I have never done it, but it was started.
Is it a thing here?
Yeah. It was started by my girlfriend who moved to Florida.
Okay.
Shout out Alicia. I never went when she lived here.
Okay.
Because I cannot keep up with her.
Right.
I don't even try. I don't even pretend to try.
That's good.
But in her honor, not
Your
that
liver
she's dead,
thanks
she's
you.
still she's still alive. I know my liver loves me. I'm very good to my liver. But some of the women that would go, and now it's turned into a couples thing. So a couple months ago, one of them reached out and said, hey, we'd really like to do. I'm like, it's really bad timing with my mother-in-law and all this stuff. Ask me again in April. And they did. And so we're going to go hit up the dive bar tour and just see.
Okay.
So it could be fun. I'll have my token drink and probably be ready for bed.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah. So
that actually sounds like a lovely escape. I think
That's it. What about you?
I'm escaping to the part of my wardrobe that is intended for nicer weather.
yay.
A week or so ago, I looked at one of our coworkers and said, I am just so sick of my winter clothes. Like,
Yeah.
I can hardly stand it. I love a good sweater, but I don't want to be wearing it in early April.
Yeah.
I want to be able to have choices like dresses, lighter sweaters, jackets, whatever. So we're there now, and I'm super
I
excited.
know you have a cute little dress on. Is your office still freezing though?
It kind of goes through phases.
okay.
So I do have to turn on the heat like a little bit, but then it's not on very long because it'll kind of warm up a little, and then I'll be like, okay, we're good.
Good.
It's the strangest thing because, sometimes I come in first thing in the morning on a cold day, and it must be a timing thing. Like maybe the
Yeah.
heat's been on, because I'll walk into my office sometimes and think, well, this feels lovely, but I'll be in there like 30 minutes and I have to turn on my heater. So yeah, sometimes I still am heating my office even though it's fairly nice
I
outside.
wonder if my head's shaped like a cone.
No, I don't think so.
Why does this happen?
I don't know.
So if we had video, which guess
we
what?
might.
It's gonna happen, people, and you're gonna get to see our antics.
People
in
have
the
made requests.
studio. And
You know
Julie's
what?
great on video. I'm a little better than I used to be, but it's still not my thing.
That
But
is
anyway,
a total
this
lie.
headset makes it. That is a total lie. I'm not better than I used to be.
No, that I'm great on video. That means doing hair and makeup like I used to have to do. That
But you
was
know how
always
to
my
do
goal
that.
was to do a job. I didn't have to do it every
that's
day,
true.
which I don't have
Hey,
to
there's
do it every day.
filters now, though. We'll just have KB do some filters. It'll be fine. But no, like this headset.
She hates the
it's
headset.
squishy. It should be soft and padded, but it's like the size of a dime. I get this really tender spot, and it just starts to hurt.
You're like a baby with a soft spot still.
Maybe.
On that note,
Brain
everybody,
damage.
thanks for tuning in, you incredible escape artists out there. We're grateful for every one of you. Thanks for sticking with us. The Escape Pod is a scrappy 3-person labor of love. Your support keeps us chugging along. We are currently on a mission to grow this pod so that we can pour more resources into our nonprofit, One Heart, in Rapid City, South Dakota, where every dollar empowers people to break free from crisis and reclaim their lives. More listeners, more downloads, more impact. It is that simple.
We truly are a podcast for a cause, so thank you to each and every one of you listeners. I just had some sorority sisters in town this weekend, and one of them said something like, download, so she's listening. Thank you. And here's where you come in. You can become a patron at escapepod.live and not only unlock bonus content, which we are working on a new library therefore, but you can unlock the warm fuzzies of knowing that you're funding real-life breakouts. It's a win-win in this day and age where those seem harder and harder to come by, especially in the nonprofit world. And for just a few bucks a month, you're not just a listener, you're a hero in our story.
And pro tip, downloading episodes beats streaming every time, like Charity's old sorority sister knows. It boosts our stats, pulls in more ad revenue, and helps us climb the charts so we can reach even more ears. So please share us with a friend, rate and review wherever you listen, and hit that download button. It is a tiny click with a massive ripple effect.
And did you know that you can hit, what's it called? Follow, and it'll automatically download them for you as soon as one's released?
Most of them, if a follow is enough to get the automatic downloads, but if you're not sure on yours, just see if there's a way to automatically download.
Well, it'll show you
it'll
on
give
every
you that
platform
option
if it's
usually.
downloaded or not. But it makes a big difference. That's just how it's measured. So help us out. But we really want to hear from you. You can connect with us at escapepod.live and maybe give us mushmouth voice. Give us advice on how to talk. Follow us on our socials. Drop us a note at justbecauseatascapepod.live. Or you can send your wild escape stories to us at escapeartist@escapepod.live.
We are sealing the hatch on this episode of the Escape Pod, but remember, trauma may be inevitable. How you grapple with it is optional. So stay resilient.
And keep laughing.
Bye, everybody.